Dr. Adrian Cole leaned back in his chair at the morning conference, half listening to the resident's nervous case presentation. The room was filled with white coats and scrub tops, coffee cups clutched like lifelines. Adrian had been chief of internal medicine for 6 years. His opinion carried weight, his word often final. But today, when the young female resident finished explaining her diagnostic reasoning, Adrian let out a short laugh and muttered, "Not bad for a pretty face." The words hung in the air like smoke. For a moment, no one moved. The resident's cheeks flushed crimson. A few of the older doctors chuckled awkwardly, as if unsure whether he was joking. Most stared at the floor. It was so unlike him. Adrian Cole, the consummate professional, the doctor patients adored, the mentor residents sought out. He had never been known to say something crude or diminishing. If anything, he was overly formal, careful with words. The resident cleared her throat, forced a smile, and continued. The meeting stumbled forward. Within minutes, the remark was buried beneath lab values and treatment plans. But Marissa Hale, one of the senior nurses invited to the meeting, couldn't let it go. She glanced at Adrian, searching his face. He wasn't smirking or apologizing, he was staring at his notes, lips moving faintly, as though whispering to himself. It unsettled her. By noon, the remark had become little more than a footnote in the day. Staff were busy, too busy to linger on awkwardness. Yet the memory of it clung to Marissa. She ran into the resident later in the hallway and gently asked, "Are you all right?" "About this morning." The young woman forced a laugh. "Oh, that? It's fine. He's stressed. Everyone's stressed." Marissa wanted to believe that. Stress did strange things. She had seen good people snap under pressure. But still, Dr. Cole? The one who scolded interns for failing to maintain professional decorum? Later that afternoon, she overheard him in the physician's lounge. He was alone, staring at the wall, whispering again. She lingered by the door. His words were indistinct, except for one phrase, "They're watching." When he noticed her, he straightened instantly. "Marissa, you need something?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "Just passing by." His eyes were too sharp, too intent. She hurried away. Adrian's days grew stranger. He still carried himself with authority, but cracks showed. During rounds, he would pause mid-sentence, staring at the ceiling as though listening to something. Once, when a patient asked about side effects of a medication, he snapped, "Don't question me. You don't know what's real." The words sent a ripple of unease through the room. That night, Marissa sat with her colleague James in the break room. "He's not himself," she said quietly. "It's more than stress." James frowned. "He's been working insane hours. Maybe he's just burning out." "Burnout doesn't make you talk to the ceiling," Marissa countered. James sighed. "What do you want to do? Report him? You know administration won't believe us without something concrete." She stared at her coffee. "Then we need to watch carefully." The next morning, Adrian entered the ward early. He greeted patients with his usual charm, but his eyes darted constantly, scanning corners, reflective surfaces, even ceiling vents. "Do you hear that?" he asked one elderly patient. "Hear what, doctor?" "The hum. They've wired the vents." "Don't worry. I'll protect you." The patient looked bewildered. The nurses exchanged uneasy glances. Later, during a team discussion about discharging a post-op patient, Adrian insisted on keeping the man hospitalized. "They'll get him if we send him out," he said grimly. "They'll finish what they started." "Who?" Marissa asked gently. He turned sharply, eyes narrowing. "You know who." Nobody challenged him further. The patient was discharged on schedule, by order of another attending. But the shadow of Adrian's words lingered. That week, medication errors started appearing in charts. Wrong dosages entered, orders canceled without explanation. Luckily, vigilant nurses caught them before harm was done. Each time, the errors traced back to Adrian's login. Confronted, he grew defensive. "The system is compromised. They're altering my orders." "Who's they?" asked Dr. Patel. Adrian leaned close, voice low. "If you can't see them, you're already theirs." Patel recoiled, unsettled. Marissa began keeping a private log. Every odd remark, every mistake averted, every whisper she overheard. It wasn't gossip, it was evidence. She had no idea what it might be needed for, but her instincts told her the hospital was heading toward danger. One evening, she found Adrian in the supply room, staring at rows of 4 bags. His lips moved rapidly, words spilling under his breath. "Doctor," she asked. He startled, eyes wild. "You can't use these. They're poisoned. They're trying to thin the herd." Marissa froze. "Adrian, these are sterile. They're safe. You believe that? You've been blinded." He grabbed a bag and hurled it against the wall. Fluid splashed everywhere. Before she could respond, he strode past her and out into the corridor. Later, when she reported the incident, administration brushed it aside. "Dr. Cole has been under immense stress," the director said. "We'll remind him to take time off." Marissa stared in disbelief. "Time off? He's destroying supplies, making dangerous claims." "We'll handle it," the director cut her off. But Marissa knew they wouldn't. And she was right. 2 nights later, during the evening shift, alarms blared from the telemetry monitors. A patient's oxygen saturation plummeted without warning. Nurses rushed in, discovering that the oxygen supply line had been tampered with, switched to room air, valves twisted deliberately. The patient was stabilized. Security combed the area. But the camera in the corridor had caught a blurry figure moments before the event, Dr. Cole, disappearing into the supply alcove. Marissa felt her heart hammer as she watched the footage. It was no longer paranoia, no longer whispers. It was action. Dangerous action. And Adrian was slipping faster than anyone realized. Adrian was no longer hiding it. He prowled the ward at odd hours, muttering about infiltrators, invisible hands pulling strings. His colleagues avoided him, but patients still trusted him too much. His reputation hadn't caught up to his unraveling. That contradiction gnawed at Marissa. Every day he remained in his position, the hospital itself felt more dangerous. "Marissa, you need to stop documenting," James whispered one evening at the station. "If administration sees what you've written, they'll say you're exaggerating." She shook her head. "If something happens and we don't have a record, then it'll be our fault. I'm not letting him take someone down with him." James sighed, rubbing his temples. "Just be careful. He looks at you differently now." And indeed, Adrian's eyes followed her with an unsettling intensity. The sabotage grew bolder. A dialysis machine malfunctioned mid-treatment. Engineers discovered its filters had been removed. A medication cart was found unlocked, vials missing. Marissa confronted Adrian in the hallway. "You were seen near the dialysis unit last night." His lips twitched into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Of course I was. I had to make sure the machines weren't compromised." "You endangered a patient." "No. I saved them. You'll see. They'll thank me later when the truth is revealed." Her stomach dropped at the conviction in his voice. There was no irony, no self-awareness. He believed it. Dialogue began to betray him more than actions. During rounds, he leaned over a patient with pneumonia and whispered, "Don't breathe too deeply. They lace the air. Slow breaths. Trust me." The patient glanced at Marissa in alarm. She stepped in quickly. "Dr. Cole, let's step outside." He straightened, eyes blazing. "You think I'm wrong?" "I think the patient needs reassurance, not fear." He chuckled darkly. "Reassurance is the poison, Marissa. That's how they control you." Smiles. Promises. Lies. Later, Marissa found the patient trembling, convinced the air was unsafe. She soothed him, but rage simmered inside her. Adrian wasn't just unstable, he was contagious. His words infected the vulnerable. The staff began whispering about him in break rooms, at vending machines, in the cafeteria line. "He's lost it," they murmured. "Something's wrong upstairs." But whispering wasn't enough. At a staff meeting, Marissa spoke up. "Dr. Cole is compromising patient safety. We need to act." The room went quiet. Adrian was absent, but his shadow loomed. Dr. Patel shifted uneasily. "We've all noticed odd behavior. But unless we have undeniable proof." "Proof?" Marissa snapped. He destroyed 4 bags, tampered with a dialysis machine, frightened patients with paranoid delusions. Patel held up a hand. I don't disagree. But administration fears liability. They want airtight evidence before taking action. Her fists clenched. Airtight evidence. How much more did they need? A body? That night, Adrian cornered her outside the medication room. You think you're subtle, he murmured, blocking her path. Marissa's pulse spiked. Move. You write things down. You gather whispers. You think you're building a case. His smile was thin, brittle. But I see everything. I know who you really serve. Adrian, she said carefully, you need help. I don't need help. I'm the only one who sees clearly. And when it all comes down, you'll wish you'd stood with me. He stepped aside, eyes glittering with something feral. She hurried past, heart racing. The climax of his spiral came slowly, then all at once. Over a week, 3 different oxygen tanks were found empty despite being checked full. 2 ventilator alarms had been disabled. A patient nearly coded before nurses caught the problem. Each trail circled back to Adrian, though never with irrefutable proof. Finally, Marissa caught him in the act. She had stayed late, charting near the ICU supply room. Through the cracked door, she saw him crouched by the central oxygen manifold, twisting valves with shaking hands. Adrian, she barked. He froze, then turned slowly. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot. You don't understand. The lines are compromised. I have to purge them before they kill everyone. You're the one endangering them, she shot back. No. His voice cracked. I'm saving them. They're not even real, Marissa. Don't you see? None of them are real. The words sent ice through her veins. He wasn't just paranoid. He was detached from reality itself. The climax of his spiral came slowly, then all at once. Over a week, 3 different oxygen tanks were found empty despite being checked full. 2 ventilator alarms had been disabled. A patient nearly coded before nurses caught the problem. Each trail circled back to Adrian, though never with irrefutable proof. Finally, Marissa caught him in the act. She had stayed late, charting near the ICU supply room. Through the cracked door, she saw him crouched by the central oxygen manifold, twisting valves with shaking hands. Adrian, she barked. He froze, then turned slowly. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot. You don't understand. The lines are compromised. I have to purge them before they kill everyone. You're the one endangering them, she shot back. No. His voice cracked. I'm saving them. They're not even real, Marissa. Don't you see? None of them are real. The words sent ice through her veins. He wasn't just paranoid. He was detached from reality itself. She lunged for the wall phone, slamming the emergency code. Alarms blared overhead. Staff flooded the corridor. Adrian bolted, weaving through startled nurses, shoving past a respiratory therapist. Stop him, Marissa shouted. Security chased, but Adrian was fast, driven by mania. He tore through the ICU, patients and families recoiling as he screamed, "You're all puppets. I'll cut the strings." Finally, near the stairwell, 2 guards tackled him. He thrashed, snarling, eyes wild. You don't know what you're doing. They'll replace me, and then you'll see. Marissa stood back, trembling as restraints were applied. The man who had once been the hospital's brightest star was dragged away, reduced to a mad prophet no one could understand. Afterward, the silence in the ward was suffocating. Nurses cleaned up the supply room, engineers inspected the oxygen lines, administrators huddled in tense meetings. Patients whispered fearfully about the shouting, the chaos. Marissa sat in the break room, head in her hands. James placed a hand on her shoulder. You stopped him. She shook her head. I was too slow. He could have, her voice broke. He could have killed someone. But he didn't, James said firmly. Because you spoke up. Because you didn't look away. She swallowed hard, knowing the truth, it wasn't over. Adrian was gone, but the scars of his unraveling would linger in patients, in staff, in herself. And somewhere, in a locked ward across town, Dr. Adrian Cole would still be whispering to the ceiling, convinced he was the only one who saw the truth. Adrian's removal shook the hospital to its core. In the days that followed, administration scrambled to contain the fallout. Official statements were drafted. Dr. Cole has taken a medical leave of absence. No mention of psychosis. No mention of sabotage. Patients were reassured, staff urged to remain professional. But behind closed doors, fear and anger simmered. Marissa sat in the HR office, giving her statement for the third time. He believed the oxygen lines were poisoned, she said flatly. He was twisting valves when I caught him. The administrator scribbled notes. And you called the emergency code immediately? Yes. He nodded, but his expression was weary. You did the right thing. Still, we'll need you to keep this confidential. For legal reasons. Confidential. As if secrecy could erase the sight of Adrian's wild eyes, the sound of his shouting, the near catastrophe. Word spread anyway. Hospitals were leaky ships. Rumors flowed through corridors faster than 4 drips. Some staff were sympathetic. He must have snapped, poor man. Others were scathing. He could have killed us all. Patients whispered about the doctor taken away and restraints. Marissa felt the weight of every glance. Some were grateful. Others, accusing. She had been the one to stand up, to press the button. She replayed it at night, lying awake, his voice, broken and desperate, insisting he was saving people. Did I fail him? She whispered once in the dark, though no one was there to answer. Adrian's family visited once, then disappeared from the hospital grapevine. Rumor had it he was placed in a psychiatric facility across the city, heavily medicated, under constant supervision. James found Marissa in the cafeteria one afternoon. You look like hell, he said gently. She snorted. Thanks. You keep thinking about him. She nodded. He was brilliant. People trusted him. How did we miss it for so long? James leaned forward. Because it started small. A remark here, an odd look there. Nobody wants to believe someone like him could fall apart. Marissa stirred her coffee silent. Don't blame yourself, James added. You saw what others ignored. That's why patients are still alive. Weeks turned into months. Systems were put in place, double checks on critical orders, mandatory wellness evaluations for physicians. It was progress, but born of fear. Sometimes, Marissa swore she could still hear his voice echoing in empty hallways. They're watching. They're poisoned. You'll see. One evening, she found herself outside the locked psych ward at St. Margaret's, the facility where he was rumored to be. She didn't go in. She couldn't. But she stood there, imagining him inside, Adrian Cole, once the brightest light in the hospital, now a shadow of himself. She whispered softly, I hope you find peace. The hospital moved on, as hospitals always did. New patients filled beds, new crises demanded attention. Residents graduated, fresh ones arrived, learning to walk the line between confidence and humility. But for those who had seen Adrian's fall, the memory lingered. It became a cautionary tale told quietly to newcomers. Watch your colleagues. Listen for the cracks. Don't ignore the little things. And for Marissa, it was more than a story. It was a scar. She carried it with her into every shift, every patient interaction, every whispered word from a resident afraid to speak up. Because she knew how quickly brilliance could turn to madness. How a single remark overlooked could be the start of a spiral that nearly destroyed everything. On the anniversary of that first remark, Marissa found herself in the same conference room. Another resident was presenting, voice shaky. She glanced around the table, new faces, cautious eyes. When the resident finished, silence hung for a moment. Then Marissa leaned forward. Good work, she said clearly. Solid reasoning. Keep trusting yourself. The resident's face lit up with relief. It wasn't much. But it was the opposite of what Adrian had given. And maybe, Marissa thought, that was how you stopped the cracks from widening, by building others up, not tearing them down. Far away, in a locked ward, Adrian Cole sat by a barred window. His hair had gone gray at the temples, his hands restless in his lap. He muttered softly, words no one could fully hear. But sometimes, the nurses swore, he fell silent and looked out at the world with clear eyes. As if, for a fleeting second, the man he used to be returned. Then the whispers would begin again, and he would vanish back into the fog.